Okay, so we're going to be working on the pocket with the flap. This top part here is going to be the flap part, and then this is our pocket. So I traced out my fabric using the pattern that's provided to you in your notebook. You can either do a round edge here or do it squared off. I decided to do square. And then I traced it out. We need to have some notches here and here. So I marked my notches and I cut it out. So that's our first piece. Our second piece is our flap, and we have to iron on a piece of interfacing only on one side. Cut two, but only one side's going to get it. So I'm gonna iron the interfacing. So iron the interfacing on. So go ahead and iron it. If you want to put the piece up here just so you can iron both of the pieces. But remember, only one gets interfaced. Okay, now we're going to be working on the pocket part. The pocket here says that we need to cut one interfacing. So we traced off this area here and we get our interfacing, and we're going to iron it onto the pocket here. Also, make sure that you make notches here and here to know where to lie the piece of interfacing. So once you've ironed this part down, on the notches here that we made, I'm gonna fold down the top part to that notch. So I'm gonna fold it down to that notch, and I'm going to iron it once again. Now I'm gonna go with the sewing machine and I'm going to sew down. So we're going to sew right 1/4 of an inch straight across here. Okay, so now we're gonna sew at 1/4 of an inch down here. So we're going to lift it up. We're gonna start and then back tack. When we reach the ends, we're gonna back tack. And it will look like this on the other side. Now you're going to get your two flap parts, put them good sides together. So one of them is interfaced, good sides together. And we're gonna sew up here, across, back down. We're gonna sew it at 1/2 inch. When you reach the corner, you're going to have your needle down. You're gonna lift your foot and move it over and continue sewing. And then you're going to end it off the same way. Needle down, lift your foot, and continue. When you get to the end, you're gonna back tack. And then you'll look like this. Now you're gonna cut the corners here because we're gonna flip it around. So we cut it, cut the corners. If you want to trim it a little bit so it's easier to flip over, you can do so. Once you have everything trimmed, you're gonna flip it right side. So you're gonna grab the corners and you're just going to flip it over to the right side. Then you can get your sharp end of your scissors and poke it out. Now we're going to press this, and then we're going to finish pressing the pocket part, and I'll show you how to attach it onto the garment. Okay, so now that we have our two pieces sewn, I'm just gonna iron and press this down one more time. Now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm just going to do a top stitch of 1/8 of an inch all the way around. For the pocket part, we're going to flip it over to the wrong side and I'm going to iron down 1/2 inch on one side. Half an inch on the other side. And then 1/2 inch on the bottom. Now, whatever item you're going to put your pocket with the flap on, you're going to pin it into place. So I like to pin this and then I'll iron it one more time on the good side. Now I'm going to pin it down. Once I pin it down, I can sew the pocket down. So I'm going to start here at about 1/4 and I'm going to sew here, down, and back up. So we have our pocket here. So here, down, up. You're gonna have the back tack when you start. Then remember, 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Then when you get to the bottom, again, put your needle down, lift up your foot and move it to the side. When you get to the next corner, put your needle down, lift up your foot. When you get to the end, you're going to back tack again. And then you have your pocket. Now we're going to attach the flap onto the pocket. But before we do that, I want to do a top stitch up here, across, and back down, just to hold everything down into place. So at 1/4 of an inch, you're going to sew it. Start back tack. Again, when you get to the corner, your needle's down, you're lifting up your foot and moving it. You get to your next corner, needle down, lift up foot, and end it with the back tack. Okay, now if you guys don't have an overlock machine, you guys can use your zigzag stitch and zigzag the edge. If you know how to use the overlock machine, I want you to clean up the edge. So now we're going to attach the flap part. So about 1/2 an inch, we're going to leave a gap and we're going to put the flap here, leaving a 1/2 an inch gap in the middle. Once you have your 1/2 an inch gap, I like to face this down to make sure it's going to fit perfectly. Once I know it's going to fit perfectly, I pin it into place. Once I've pinned it into place, I'm going to sew it up here at 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to sew this piece down. I'm going to sew it down 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to lift up my foot, put my foot down, do a back tack. When I reach the end, I'll do a back tack. Lift it up, take my pins out. Once you're done, I flip my flap down. And then we're going to do another top stitch right across here at 1/4 of an inch. So I'm putting in my machine. And your flap will look like this.